cars, shops, very neighborhoodish, very all the locals. Oprah Winfrey's studios used to be over there, Harpo Studios. She sold that property to the McDonald's Corporation, and they built their world headquarters there. So if you want to take the kids over to a McDonald's, go there, because that restaurant in that building has food that you'd only find like in Great Britain or in Tokyo. So they have some international flavors, and they rotate that menu. So just a little fun thing to do there. As we make our, just follow the Randolph Street Bridge over, or Randolph Street West, you'll run right into it. As we make our way under the Randolph Street Bridge, I want you to be ready to look up over here on your left. This is the Bank of America building, just completed out in 2020. It is our newest all-commercial building. A couple features of this building. Notice how what they did for the river setback. They set back the building 30 feet. They went up 3 stories, but then they came back over and recaptured it and used that tri-column pier system to support that building to maximize that floor space. Another feature of this building that I like is even like on a day like today, when the sun hits that just right with the sky behind it, this building all but disappears due to the color scheme of the mirrored glass. Another feature, when you build such a building, I live just on the other side and I have a west view. Well, I used to only get west sun when the sun set in the evening. Now I get morning and night sun, because the morning sun comes up, shines on the building, and reflects back into my living room. So anyway, this building, $800 million to build it. In 2020, they sold it last year for $1.2 billion. $300 million return in 2 years. Good real estate going on here, folks. All right, folks, let's talk about styles of architecture. We'll put them into a chronological order. Coming up over here on your left, this is 2 North Riverside. If you remembered when we started the tour, I talked about the Wrigley Building and Spanish Revivalists, a copy of Europe. By the mid-1920s, we came up with Art Deco. This is what was on the merchandise mart. Limestone recessed windows, setbacks of the roof, okay? Whenever you see this is 1925 to 1930. This was the Jazz Age. This was the Roaring 20s. This is when America was really booming and growing, and we needed a lot of these large buildings. October the 29th, 1929, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression set in. Because of that, by 1930, there was no need for these large office buildings. The economy just didn't justify it. The last large office building to be completed in the United States after the stock market crash was the Empire State Building in New York. It wasn't until the later 1950s, after World War II had ended, the economy was starting to return and become robust again. We were building our infrastructure, and they needed large buildings. And that's where we come up with these 2 buildings. We call this Gateway Plaza 1 and Gateway Plaza 2. This style of architecture is called Black Box Modernism. A gentleman named Ludwig Mies van der, a guy from Germany, immigrated here during the war, set up shop, and became the architect of the century. Notice the simplicity of these buildings. The simplicity of the buildings being it's metal, it's glass, it's straight lines. There's no frills, no ornamentation, no gargoyles hanging off the side of it. Just basic structure. You have to keep in mind the people who were building and buying these buildings. That period of time, they were all post-Depression era babies. They did not waste. So do not waste anything. It was all about function over form. A feature of this style of architecture, whenever you see it, is always look around, because it'll have a nice plaza. And generally on the plaza, there will be a nice piece of artwork, because the inside of the building was about work, the outside was where you would go to relax and enjoy. So that was Black Box Modernism. Now coming up on your right is Gateway Plaza 3. That's this white building, and this is the early 70s. Look how crazy they got. Yeah, what's so different is a square building, straight lines. Yeah, they put a facade on it, give them a little break, okay? So they're starting to loosen up a little bit. We call this an international style of architect, and you see it all over the United States and throughout the world. It wasn't until the 80s when things really started getting crazy. Now, the 80s is when people were breaking out a little bit more, making their own personal statement. It was all about being big and flashy. The women had great big hair, shoulder pads, whatever. Well, that's where we come up with Gateway Plaza 4. That's this green building. Okay, so now you have a color in a glass. You've got shiny glass. You've got curved glass. You've got curved walls. I mean, they are going nuts. And this is the start of contextualism. What was really happening is there was advancements in metal and glass technology that permitted such things. And this is what led into contextualism, into contemporary. You want to call it modern. There's all kinds of new words being used. But anyway, that was the lead. Now, if you've been to Millennium Park, or if you get to Millennium Park, look at the amphitheater and try to describe that. It's beautiful, but I don't know what you'd really describe it as. So it's just a cool feature, or a cool structure. Over here on your left, as we make under the bridge, if you own a black box modernism building and you feel you need to update, here's a simple trick you can do. Just put an $8 million facade on the front of your building. This is an exact replica of the city street map of Chicago, and that red marker up there is where we are right now. We call this the You Are Here building, okay? So all they did is the new owners, when they bought it 10 years or so ago, they put that facade up there just to make it different. Now, any Batman fans on board? Who likes Batman movies? If you do, over here on your right is Gotham Bank. Yes, Gotham Bank. This is Van Buren Street that you're about to pass under. That's where the Joker got away with a boatload of money. It's also known as the old post office from about 1921. It was the country's largest post office when completed. We needed such a large post office because we were such a catalog retail giant in the early 1900s. Catalog shopping is what Amazon is today. You couldn't buy it locally, you ordered it and had it shipped. We had Sears, Filene's, Marshall Field's, and others. Well, when that business dried up and went away, nobody needed a post office quite that size anymore. So they ended up abandoning it, and it sat empty for many, many years. About 9 years ago, about $800 million ago, 2 million square feet of that floor space was renovated, and now is 94% occupied primarily by high-tech companies. So that's just a great story of revitalization. It even has a 3.5-acre rooftop up there with a jogging track, so it's the country's largest rooftop. So not only does that revitalize that building and bring life back to the building, but it also revitalizes the neighborhood around it and brings life to that neighborhood. I'm going to spend the next few minutes just giving you a real quick rundown of the history of Chicago. In the mid-1600s, around 1640, King Louis XIV got a group of people together led by Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette to come and explore how they knew somehow the Atlantic Ocean connecting to the Great Lakes must somehow be able to connect to the Mississippi River. So they sent a group of men out to explore. Upon that exploration, they come across the Native Americans that lived here, and they showed them how the Chicago River would help them do that with a bit of portage. Anyway, the river, when discovered, was about 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, so it was just a trickle. The land was covered with a weed called Chicagowa. It kind of had an onion garlic smell to it. Okay, and Chicagowa is where the name Chicago comes from. So some say New York got the Big Apple and Chicago got the smelly onion. But anyway, John Baptiste de Salvo, though, 1780, an escaped slave from Haiti, they claim, he gets credit for coming here and being the first settler and actually discovering Chicago. 1833, we became a town with 400 people. 1837, a city with 4,000 people. 1871, there was over 1 million people in the city of Chicago. So we grew really rapidly. That meant we had to build rapidly to keep up with the growth of the population. The most readily available material was wood, harvested out of Michigan and Wisconsin. This whole downtown over here was all wooden structures. Even some of the sidewalks and streets were wooden, all right? Summer of 1871 was a very dry summer. October the 8th, 1871, over here just a little ways to the west, a lady named Mrs. O'Leary lived over there, and she had a barn. The legend is the cow kicked over the lantern in the barn and set it on fire. Okay, nobody knows if the cow did it, but they know the fire started in Mrs. O'Leary's barn. Because it was dry, because it was windy, and because the fire department went to the wrong address, that fire spread. This river was narrow, it was polluted, and the fire was able to jump the river and land in the downtown. It set the downtown on fire. 3.5 square miles of the city burned and turned into ash. 300 people dead, 17,000 strong. They have spires, and the spire counts into the height of the building. One World Trade Center, the spire is about 430 some feet of that 1,776 feet height that they get to claim. Sears Tower is from the floor to the rooftop. Those two white structures up there are antennas. Antennas don't get the count, even though those antennas are about 280 feet high each. Oh, that's just a architectural thing. I don't know why. Yeah, not fair. Anyway, the Sears Tower, it's actually a collection of 9 buildings sitting on a city block, 3 by 3. This is called bundling. That's how they stabilize the main tower of the building. You put various towers surrounding it at various heights. If you go up, if you see on the 103rd floor up there, that's where those little boxes, those things on the left-hand side of the building are hanging over. That's called the ledge. That's the observation deck, okay? Those were added in recent years. But anyway, they're glass boxes that are retractable. They push out, okay, about 4 feet. They pull them in to wash them, and then they push them back out. But that allows you to go up there and walk out onto an 1.5 inch thick piece of glass and look down 1,300 feet. Okay, so if you want a little thrill in your life, that's the way to get it. Okay, and that's the sky deck at the Sears Tower. From up there, you can see Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan, okay, on a clear day like today. So a really cool experience up there. Now, here's a Bob tip of the day for you. If you just want to go get a great view from a high floor atop of a tall building, John Hancock Building on North Michigan Avenue, the Signature Room. Just go up there and have a drink. You don't have to spend the $50 to go to the top of the Sears Tower, but it's worth the ride. And if you're on the city pass that you may have used to get on the boat here, that is one of your options, so check it out. Also, they redid the base of that building. There's lots of cool, there's a food court down there and some shops and things, so Sears Tower is still definitely worth a tour. But otherwise, just go to the John Hancock Building, and I'll show you where it is later in the tour. Now, you keep hearing me say Sears. There are about 6 people in the world, maybe one of you are on here, that call that the studio in there. When it opened, was $1 million. They just sold the hotel portion to a new owner, and it's now said that each hotel room costs $400,000. Isn't that crazy? That's why I don't think you can touch a hotel in there for under $700, $800 a night. But anyway, absolutely gorgeous structure. Over here on your right, folks, see these kayaks? Again, they're a fun thing to do. But I want you to pay attention to the color of those kayaks, and here's why. Saturday before St. Patrick's Day, it's tradition. We dye this river green. The entire river, from here all the way down to Wolf Point, and it's that color green when it's all said and done. Okay? It's a very bright neon green, and it lasts about a week. As the week goes on, the color starts to dissipate. They use a chemical, I forget what it's called. It's very organic. It's very safe. It's the same chemical they use when they suspicion somebody might be dumping into the river. So anyway, a fun tradition if you like to come out and do fun things. There's actually 2 more parcels of land for building. There's a small parcel over there, and then this one that you can actually see. There's supposed to be 2 more towers, residential towers, go up here. But beyond that, look at that curvy building with the circle at the top. Some people say that building looks like a flask. Okay? This is the Lake Point Tower building. It's famous and known, not only is it a gorgeous building, it has awesome views, but Daniel Burnham said no building on the lakefront. Well, this building, through some loopholes that some shrewd people found in the zoning codes, managed to get that building built in the 60s. And so that building got built out on the lakefront when nothing else was supposed to. And it'll be the last building built there. But again, gorgeous views up there. A lot of celebrities, Holly Berry, Sammy Sosa, just to name a couple of things, will live there. We're passing under the one and only Lakeshore Drive, known as DeSable Lakeshore Drive now, which follows the lakeshore, or the lakefront. We have 28 miles of lakefront here in the city of Chicago. There's 18 miles of bike and footpath here too. So if you want to go out for a run in the morning or just rent a divvy bike and go for a ride, you can do 18 miles end to end, so 36 miles round trip. Off to your left over here, Daniel Burnham had vision of multiple piers to be built. This is the one that did. This is Navy Pier. It was completed in 1916, and it's called Navy Pier because it was built for the Navy. It served as barracks, training facilities. It even had a landing strip on it to practice landing on aircraft carriers. I'm told there's 200 airplanes at the bottom of the lake. So I guess not everybody hit their target. George Bush Sr. did his pilot training out here, or some of it as well. It sat empty for a while. It was used as a college for a while. Now it is our largest cultural center. Folks, there's lots of stuff to go out there and do, especially for the kids, okay? So lots of different shops, lots of different food. There's the Ferris wheel, which is a replica, not the full size, but a replica of the original Ferris wheel that debuted at the World's Fair. Now, those of you without children, did you just pick up what I told you? There's lots of children out there. No, it's a good time. Go out to the end of the very end of the pier. Great views of the lake. You can even do the shoreline lake boat cruise from over there. Folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn the boat and pause for a couple moments so that you can take some pictures of that skyline behind you, all right? You'll be able to see the South Loop down there. That's where the museum campus is, a little bit north. But anyway, get some pictures. Just don't stand on the benches, don't stand on the chairs, and stay on this side of the rail. Zach is also down there. The bar is still open, so we're going to get another beverage.